I was driving to the animal shelter with a $5,000 African gray parrot in the passenger seat, and my only thought was how much I hoped he wouldn't bite the volunteer. The bird's name was Barnaby. He was 25 years old, possessed a beak that could crack a walnut in half, and he hated me. To be fair, the feeling was mutual. Barnaby was my inheritance. He was the sole item left to me by my great Aunt Agnes, a woman whose heart was rumored to be 2 sizes too small and made of granite. Agnes had died 3 weeks ago at the age of 89. She left her sprawling Victorian estate to a historical society. She left her considerable stock portfolio to a cat charity, despite never owning a cat. And to me, her only living relative, she left a birdcage smelling of old newspaper and a creature that screeched, "Get out!" whenever I entered the room. I gripped the steering wheel of my rusting sedan. The air conditioning was broken, and the humid July heat was making my blouse stick to my back. My bank account was currently overdrawn by $40. I had bills piling up on my kitchen counter like snowdrifts. I did not have the time, the patience, or the funds to care for a neurotic bird with a vocabulary comprised entirely of insults. "Get out!" Barnaby shrieked from his travel carrier. "I'm trying, Barnaby," I muttered, staring at the road. "I'm taking you to a nice lady who likes birds. She has peanuts. You'll love her." I was lying to the bird. I felt a twinge of guilt, but I shoved it down. I was 58 years old. I was tired. I had spent the last decade caring for my own ailing mother until she passed, depleting my savings and my energy. I had expected, perhaps naively, that Aunt Agnes might leave me something to help me get back on my feet. A little cushion, a safety net. Instead, she left me a feathered burden. The shelter was only 5 miles away. I had made the appointment yesterday. They specialized in exotic rescues. They would find him a good home, one with people who understood his complex needs and didn't mind being yelled at by a dinosaur. I looked over at the carrier. Barnaby was watching me with one beady, intelligent yellow eye. He tilted his head. "Useless girl," he croaked. I slammed on the brakes. The car screeched to a halt on the dusty shoulder of the road. My hands were shaking. That wasn't just a random phrase. That was Agnes. I could hear her tone, the sharp, clipped diction she used whenever I visited as a child. "Useless girl. Don't touch that. Sit up straight." Barnaby ruffled his feathers, seemingly pleased with the reaction. "Is that all you are?" I asked the cage, my voice trembling with sudden anger. "Just a tape recorder for her nastiness? Did she leave you to me just to keep insulting me from the grave?" "Useless girl," Barnaby repeated. Then he added a sound I hadn't heard in years, the sound of a heavy brass clock chiming. Bong, bong, bong. I stared at him. The guilt I had pushed down suddenly surged back up, mixed with a strange, stubborn curiosity. If I dropped him off now, Agnes won. She would have the final word. She would have proven that I was exactly what she thought I was. Someone who gave up when things got difficult. I put the car in drive. But I didn't pull back onto the highway. I turned the car around. "1 week," I told the bird. "You get 1 week. If you bite me, you're going to the zoo." Barnaby made a sound like a cork popping from a wine bottle. It sounded suspiciously like a laugh. The next 3 days were a war of attrition. Barnaby lived in the corner of my small living room, dominating the space like a feathered dictator. He threw seeds on the floor. He shredded the newspaper lining his cage. He screeched at dawn, a sound that pierced right through my skull and woke me up with my heart hammering. I spent my days cleaning up after him and trying to figure out what he ate. Agnes had left no instructions, just a bag of expensive mix that he seemed to despise. I was broke, exhausted, and resentful. I sat on my worn-out sofa on the fourth night, eating a bowl of instant ramen for dinner. Barnaby watched me. "Hungry," he said. It wasn't a question. "You have food," I said, pointing to his full bowl. "Rubbish," Barnaby said. "Pure rubbish." I froze. That was Agnes again. I remembered her sitting at the head of her long mahogany dining table, dismissing a soup I had made her during one of my rare visits. "Pure rubbish." "Well, it's all you've got," I snapped. Barnaby climbed the bars of his cage, hanging upside down like a bat. "Peaches," he whispered. "Sweet peaches." I looked at him. Agnes hated fruit. She claimed it was sticky and attracted flies. I had never seen a peach in her house. "You want peaches?" I asked. Barnaby bobbed his head. "Sweet peaches. For the boy." I frowned. The boy? Agnes never had children. There were no boys in her life. She was a spinster, a recluse who guarded her privacy like a dragon guarding gold. The mystery nagged at me. The next morning, I used the last $5 in my wallet to buy 2 fresh peaches from the market. I sliced one up and offered a piece to Barnaby through the bars. He took it gently. He didn't bite me. He held the fruit in his black claw, nibbling on it with a look of pure ecstasy. "Good boy," I whispered, surprised by my own softness. Barnaby paused. He looked at me, his pupil dilating and contracting. "Blue chair," he said clearly. "Under the cushion." Blue chair. My heart stopped. Agnes had a blue velvet armchair. It was the throne she ruled from. It was in the estate sale pile, scheduled to be auctioned off by the Historical Society next week. I technically still had the keys to her house until the end of the month, though I wasn't supposed to remove anything. "Blue chair," Barnaby repeated, more urgently. "Key, key, key." I grabbed my purse. The drive to Agnes's estate took 40 minutes. The house stood on a hill, a looming Victorian monstrosity of turret and stone. It looked empty and hollow now, devoid of the terrifying woman who had inhabited it. I unlocked the heavy oak front door. The air inside was stale, smelling of lavender and dust. It was the smell of my childhood fear. I walked into the parlor. The furniture was draped in plastic sheets, tagged for the auction. I found the blue velvet armchair in the corner. It looked small now, stripped of Agnes's presence. I approached it slowly, feeling like a thief. "Under the cushion," I whispered. I lifted the heavy velvet seat cushion. There was nothing there but dust and the fabric lining of the chair. I felt a wave of foolishness wash over me. I was taking directions from a bird that probably just heard Agnes mumbling to herself about losing her keys. "Stupid," I said aloud. "Useless girl." I dropped the cushion. It hit the frame with a dull thud. Wait, it wasn't a soft thud. It was a hard metallic clunk. I lifted the cushion again. I ran my hand along the bottom of the chair frame, under the lining. I felt a lump. I used my fingernail to tear the thin fabric. Something fell out onto the carpet. It was a small silver key. It was taped to a thick folded envelope. My hands trembled as I picked them up. The envelope was heavy. On the front, in Agnes's shaky handwriting, were the words for the bird's keeper. I tore it open. Inside was a letter and a bank book. I opened the bank book first. It was a savings account I had never heard of. The balance at the bottom of the page made the room spin. $50,000. I gasped, clutching the book to my chest. It wasn't millions, but to me, in my debt-drowning life, it was a fortune. It was freedom. It was a fresh start. I unfolded the letter. To whomever takes Barnaby, it read.
If you are reading this, you are likely my niece, Martha. I assume this because no one else in this family has the stubbornness to put up with that wretched bird for more than a day. The Historical Society certainly wouldn't take him. They only want dead things. You probably hate me. You have every right to. I was a hard woman. I became hard because life is unkind to women who are soft. I watched you, Martha. I watched you care for your mother. I watched you struggle. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how to be kind anymore. I only knew how to be strong. And I thought giving you money would make you weak. I was wrong. Barnaby was the only living thing I loved. He is difficult, loud, and remembers only the things you wish he would forget. He is a mirror. If he is kind to you, it is because you have shown him kindness. If he tells you about the blue chair, it is because you listened to him. The money is for you. The bird is also for you. He needs someone who won't give up on him. I know you won't. You never gave up on your mother. P.S. He loves peaches. I used to sneak them to him when the nurse wasn't looking. Aunt Agnes.
I sat on the floor of the empty parlor, holding the letter, and wept. I cried for the money, yes, but mostly I cried for the woman I had never really known. I cried for the lonely old woman who sat in this blue chair, eating peaches in secret with a parrot, practicing kindness in the only safe way she knew how. She hadn't thought I was useless. She had thought I was strong. I drove back home in a daze. When I walked into my apartment, Barnaby was hanging from the top of his cage, waiting. "You found it," he squawked. It wasn't Agnes's voice this time. It was a new tone. Softer, almost conversational. "I found it, Barnaby," I said. I walked over to the cage and opened the door. He didn't fly out. He stepped onto my wrist, his claws gripping my skin. He was heavy and warm. He smelled like dust and fruit. "Rich girl," he croaked. I laughed. It was a rusty sound, but it felt good. "Not rich, Barnaby. Just okay. We're going to be okay." "Okay," Barnaby repeated. He rubbed his head against my thumb. "Okay. Brave girl." I froze. Agnes had never called me brave. Not once. But she must have said it to him. She must have sat in that house, thinking about me, talking to the only creature who listened. I looked at the bird, my inheritance. I had tried to give him away because I thought he was a burden. I realized now he was the only witness to the truth of our family. He was the vault where Agnes had stored her heart. "You want a peach?" I asked him, blinking back fresh tears. Barnaby fluffed his gray feathers and looked me right in the eye. "Sweet peaches," he said. "And tea, Earl Grey." "Hot," I smiled. "Coming right up." I went to the kitchen to put the kettle on. I wasn't alone anymore. I had $50,000 in the bank, a fresh start, and a grumpy, peach-loving roommate who knew exactly how strong I was. Agnes was right. I was stubborn, and I was going to keep the bird.